It's 5:15. We'll call this regular school board meeting to order. I'd like to recognize everybody in the audience this evening. Would you please stand and recite the pledge with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to school board norms. Heidi?
The board developed norms are: decisions will be based on the board's strategic plan, its mission, and what's best for students. The board will act as stewards of tax dollars. Board members will complete foundation work to be prepared for meetings. Meetings will be efficient. All perspectives will be voiced and heard, and all board members will maintain a professional decorum.
Thanks, Heidi. We have no public communications. Moving to D, is there any conflicts of interest to declare? Hearing none, moving to consent agendas or motion to approve. Motion by Jennifer, seconded by Heidi. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving into our regular agenda, we have nothing under recognition or correspondence. Under reports, we have superintendent's report. Rob?
Thank you. A lot of time since we've met has been devoted to our legislative session. I provided, as I talked previously, I provided some links to some of the bills that are either more timely or something that we have been tracking, spending a little bit more time with. I did testify in support of 2038. We've talked about that bill before. That's opening up flexibility for professional development. Right now, there are requirements in Century Code that say you need to spend so many hours on this, so many hours on this, and what we're trying to do is provide it more flexibility so a school can conduct a needs assessment and then do professional development in those areas of behavioral health that are most pertinent in that district. It might be, instead of 2 hours of professional development on bullying, for example, in a district it might be 6. Or you might be 0 when you're spending all your time on suicide prevention, or it might be spending time on other behavioral mental health issues that are specific to that district. So kind of trying to get away from that cookie cutter approach and more into the, meet the needs of your students in your district. And so far we've gotten very good support with that. I testified in support of 2321. That relates to carryover amounts. This is one that doesn't impact us. The current law is 35% plus $20,000. We aren't anywhere near that. We're around 12%. So it doesn't impact us, but it does impact schools in North Dakota. And so we're supporting that because, I was already down in Bismarck, which is testifying on a different bill. So that's why I testified in this bill also. But there are smaller districts. If you focus so much on that percentage, when you have a small budget, that percentage doesn't get you very far. And so what this bill does, and it's actually sponsored by Senator Terry Wanzik from our district here, or one of our districts here, and it says 35% plus 200,000. So that makes a much bigger difference. It really changes nothing for us, but it makes a big difference to our rural communities. And then I testified in opposition to 1318. That would be defunding REAs, our regional education associations. There's about a $4.8 million fiscal note to that. Districts across North Dakota get much, much more than $4.8 million worth of value from the REAs, and defunding them would just be a cost shift. We would end up picking up those costs instead of the REAs that are funded. So really, it's not a cost savings. It's a loss. REAs have done great things for us, and we want to do anything we can to support them. But 108 bills in the bill tracker, so lots of things to manage, and just to keep up. This session has been difficult. If you haven't become familiar with the bill tracker, I put a link to it. There's an app that's great also. If you haven't had a chance to see those, they're great. You can input your bill list. It'll give you a rundown by day. On Tuesday, this is happening. Wednesday this is happening, you can track right to the bill. It's very, very useful. So I would recommend checking it out if you haven't done that already. A few other bills, maybe just to touch on, 1098 tries to ease up some licensure, loosen up some licensure requirements. North Dakota has notoriously been very stringent on those requirements, and trying to open that up would help us as we struggle to find qualified and interested teachers. 1276 limits property taxes to 3% without voter approval. That's a scary one. We're already talking about 0% increases over 2 years, and then if you limit on the other side to 3%, that makes it very difficult to operate in biennium in which they don't give you the increase that you need at the state level. We've talked before, we're very student-centric, and we're very state-centric now in our funding formula. So the number of kids you have, the fact that you're growing or declining, the per pupil payment, those are all significant factors. And a 3% would be a big hit for any school district. And I actually didn't list it on here, but there's another one I just found that relates to 3% also. So even with 12%, I think that gets to be a little dicey. And I think it comes down to, as I stated in my report, a local control issue. School boards already have that ability to see what is needed in their district. And any of those caps, like I said, it really, to me, comes down to a local control issue. 1279 and 1310, those are both related to firearms. 1279 would allow a firearm to be carried at a sporting event. Sporting events or athletic contests actually are specifically outlined in one of the prohibited areas in concealed weapons, and this law would strike that, or this bill would strike that. The other 1310 allows concealed weapons to be carried on school property. There are some training components and an annual renewal. It must be approved by the local school board. I could spend about an hour with you talking about the concerns I have over this bill, but I think suffice it to say that teachers in North Dakota, principals in North Dakota, School Boards Association, Superintendents Association, all have come out in opposition of both of these bills. And it would create a huge burden, I think, and be a scary situation for our communities and for our schools, introducing weapons into a safe environment. I think should concern us all. I do have a little bit of a concern too that it was assigned to the House Natural Resources Committee, where typically those types of things are assigned to House Education. But this was given to the House Natural Resources, easily passed there. Looking on track to pass the House again. It did last session, a very similar bill. And it failed, I believe, by 1 vote in the Senate. So there's some discussions and some testifying that'll need to happen there on 1310. Yes.
Basically, I mean, I've read through those that would allow it, doesn't require it.
That's correct. It would allow a school board to make the decision. There were some other issues of in executive session, you could name who could, what teacher could. And I keep coming back, Greg, to the idea, if it's that simple, if that's all we need, what do we have police academies for? If all we need is to go through a short period of training and an annual renewal. If you go and talk to peace officers, they get reinforced. Don't use your weapon, don't use your weapon, don't use your weapon. De-escalate, de-escalate, de-escalate. And they're the most trained folks out there on firearms. And that's what they're trained to do. But this would turn that around and say the least trained people are encouraged then to use those in those situations. And I understand what's happening. I mean, I don't want to misrepresent. People are after safety. I just, in my opinion, this solves a very narrow problem and thus creates numerous other problems by introducing that into the school system. And that's where the concern would be. And I respect the need for safety. That's a priority for every person that's sitting in this room. That's a priority for every parent and every teacher that works here. But I don't think that this is going to do that. 1324, our funding bill, 0% increase in both years. I think that's the best we're going to do, to be completely honest with you. And that even includes a large chunk coming from the Foundation Aid Stabilization Fund. 1382, I sat in, I observed on this bill. This is, well, they call it a personal education savings account, but essentially they're vouchers. And so they would shift hundreds of millions of dollars away from public schools and allow for choice with home education. You would create this personal savings account. You could use it for home ed or private school. I believe the fiscal note was somewhere around 800 million. 1389 allows any parent to opt out of any activity, practice, or test that happens in school. 1432, this is another interesting one. It would remove North Dakota from our current standards, adopt standards from 2008 from Massachusetts, and disallow any change there. It would remove the superintendent of public instruction from the standards, from directing the standards process, and would put that onus on legislators. 2037 and 2243, both very good bills and initiatives to either increase or create loan forgiveness programs for teachers. And essentially what's happening there, trying to encourage more folks to come into the field, get more teachers involved in education, and the hope being that some loan forgiveness in either enhancing or creating new loan forgiveness programs would help get those teachers. 2243 is specifically in the rural areas that wouldn't impact Jamestown. We would be out of that definition, but I do think it's very positive. That would increase, that would enhance the opportunities across the state for teachers. If you grow that pool, eventually Jamestown reaps benefits like any more urban school district would reap some benefits from that also. I would be supportive of that. You've talked a lot about Marzano training for our teachers. We're going through more training for the school leader component of that. I can go through that more. We'll probably do some more for some board education, but I just want to make you aware. And you can look at that model. I've linked that model in the presentation that we did through the learning sciences. And very good. But just providing consistency with what we do with our teachers and what we are expecting from principals also. Policy BAC, if you noticed, BAC was not in our second reading. And that was, if you remember, the social media component. We had some question about certain areas of that policy. I reached out to School Boards Association, and they were actually in the process of removing those same areas that we questioned, or that Jennifer had questioned, for the same reasons that she had talked about, maybe being a little bit antiquated, not as current as what we might use social media for. And so that was actually, she started in October, and that was one of her first policies that she wanted to address. And so I'm not bringing it back for a second reading just to revise it again. So we'll just bring it back for a first reading as policy BA, which is what she's putting it under policy BA, or the template that they use, BA, and then a board regulation, BABR. So when those are ready, we'll bring them back and we'll just use first readings with those. The policy acceptance guidance, what I'm suggesting that you do, outside of BAC, we had no comment related to any policy. So I would suggest if, rather than act on each of them separately, because you've already done that with the first readings, that you just do them all in one lump, unless any one board member says, I think we need to talk about this policy, or I've heard this. If that's the case, I think you should act on that policy separate, but I think you can lump the rest of it in and do a second reading all in one. School immunization update, we got some information from the Department of Health related to school immunization. I think I was very proud to see, to show that survey. I think what it shows is the people that register, those people in the central office that register, like Amy and Sandy, and then follow-up, if necessary, at the schools, have done a very good job in monitoring immunizations. And those are hard numbers. It is difficult to have everybody complete those requirements. The fact that we're at those levels, that shows that people are doing a really good job of a few different things: communicating those requirements and what they are, and then that follow-up if it's necessary to continue to get those. I know, because Amy's office is right outside of my office. I know how often phone calls have to happen, and it's really a testament to the work that they're doing. And it's good for our district to have those high rates. Really, I can't imagine anybody having higher than what that is. I mean, you're doing a great job. Enrollment projections, I can answer questions if you have them. I gave them just the one page that I got from Schwartz and Associates, RSP and Associates, from Rob Schwartz. He'll be coming on the 20th of March, and he'll have more information for you and be able to answer more specific questions. But if you have any, I would certainly entertain them and answer them the best that I can. I think it does show a more measured projection than what we had last time, which I think pretty closely matches what the local economy, our state economy has been. Seeing a slower projection there, a more measured projection. Superintendent evaluation, I won't talk about that other than to say that I have some suggested timelines that you follow that would ensure that you reach to those deadlines of March 15th.
Okay. Any questions, Heidi?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I serve on the Southeast Education Cooperative, so I did go down and sit in on the committee testimony for House Bill 1318, which was to eliminate the defund the REAs, and listen to the couple hours of testimony. I just wanted to, Superintendent Leck did a fine job in testifying at that, and there was many other people in the field of education, from superintendents to all across North Dakota, DPI, many people that showed up to that day to testify. And so I just wanted to let you know I did sit in on the meeting. I didn't testify, and Mr. Leck did a great job in explaining the benefits that our district and the things that we participate in, including like our after-school programs and those kinds of things, which are important not only for our district but also our community. So I appreciate his time in that.
Thanks, Heidi. Any other questions, Diane?
Speaking of Mr. Leck traveling to these places to testify and to be a part of the legislature, Rob, could you project, if this bill passes that you mentioned last meeting, that you will not be paid to attend, or you can't go on company time? Where is that standing right now, and how would that affect you in the future?
Well, I guess I'm not sure if that's been heard yet or not in committee. I would have to look at that again. I can't imagine that there would be a great chance for that to come out of committee with a due pass, but and even less so on when it actually came to the floor. But the way the bill reads is you would have to give me direct authority to go for a specific purpose. You would have to say, we would like for you to go testify on House Bill 1318. Then it would be approvable. I guess the issue with that is how often would you want to meet to give that authority to go do those things? And I'm sure there's some ways you could work around. You could provide written testimony, but that's not the same. I'll give you, I provided written testimony on a bill that's being heard tomorrow. I just couldn't go because I'll be gone 2 days again. I mean, you just can't be at everything you'd like to be at, especially not when there's 108 bills on your list. But you can't be at everything. But I guess you could provide more written testimony, things like that. But it would be very difficult to represent our district without the ability to go and testify without that, without it having to be approvable at each instance. That would be very difficult to do.
Diane?
And just to follow up, I want to be sure that I explain that I'm very supportive of what you do. I don't know of all the superintendents we've had over the years, if there's been anyone this involved in the legislative process, and it's of great benefit to our district. And I hate to see a troublesome bill like this raise its head, because if it were to pass, it would be a problem from my perspective. So we'll see what happens. But the other thing I wanted to mention in HB 1098, the last sentence there, the ESPB aimed at loosening up the bureaucracy surrounding licensure. I just wanted to ask, are we talking about the paperwork involved, or are we talking about lowering the standards of what's required of a North Dakota teacher?
I would say loosening the standards is a better way to maybe say that, not lowering, but loosening. A good example, if a teacher has been teaching in Minnesota in biology for 25 years, that person is a pretty good, likely has all the requisite skill to be a biology teacher, but they may not be able to teach in North Dakota because of our requirements. And so it's kind of comes down to a reciprocity, for example. Ensuring that the teachers that we're getting are still good teachers, but loosening up those standards or loosening up those requirements help us ensure that we get those people to be able to teach what they could and should be teaching. And it ultimately still comes down to hiring. Those people still, they can have a licensure, but they still need to be hired by your district. And it comes down to the standard you have in your district.
And I just want to follow up on that by saying that when I came here, there was reciprocity involved because I was a teacher in Nevada. And I remember, this was many years ago, thinking, boy, this is just too much, everything they're asking of me. I had to go back and take courses. I had to prove what was given in each course that I was declaring, what was taught. And at the time, I thought it was troublesome. Well, looking back on it now, I can see it reflected in the classrooms of North Dakota. And in Nevada, we had the same problem. We couldn't get enough qualified teachers, especially in Clark County, which includes Vegas. So they started loosening the standards, and I could see it reflected in the classroom very quickly, within a year or two. And I just, on a personal level, I just want to make the plea that we need to be very careful here. It's a bit of a slippery slope, but I would follow your lead on whether you think this is a good bill that probably would just clear up some minor issues and not actually affect what's happening in the classroom.
Just a comment to that, too. I think Jamestown's been very fortunate. Greg Allen has served on ESPB, and president, too, correct? Bob Toso serves on ESPB now. He was recently appointed there. Dan Van Onen, teacher at the high school, has served on ESPB, and he might even have been the president at some point, too. So I think we've been well represented on ESPB, and that group does a good job of ensuring that there's a balance between high standard and just the common sense of licensure.
Any other questions for Rob? None. Moving into board education, they have the policy development. Rob, you want to comment on that?
Me again, yeah. We had talked policy development last time. I thought it might be good to kind of review the process that you use and just to ensure that everybody is familiar with what process gets used. And so the vast majority of our policies are either found in one of two places. Really, the most often most likely what you see is coming through the Policy Services of School Boards Association. It's a very valuable tool. part of your school board association dues are directly related to the hiring of people for legal counsel and policy development. They do an awful lot of work to make sure that school districts have good policies, at least for templates. And so that's the first place we look. And there's times when you go to other school districts, if the school board association doesn't have a policy in a certain area, or you might want to say, well, show me what school board association has in another district and maybe what we use, and you just try to see what works the best. In the event that, well, we know that any policy coming from school board association already has had legal review. They have an attorney on staff. The schools that we get policies from, if they have been reviewed by legal counsel, we may not look to legal counsel. If they haven't, or if we're drafting it ourselves, then that would go through legal counsel. We want to make sure that the policies that we're bringing forth meet the needs of our district, but also that they're legally sound. So once we've had that policy proposal in place, we do a first reading. The reason you do a first reading and you wait till your second meeting to adopt is just to provide ample time for response. So you want to make sure that either school board members have a chance, the people on the governing board have a chance to review and kind of get enough time to adequately review the policy. You might need to get feedback. Somebody from the public might come and say, hey, I heard this policy, I think that's great, or I think you have some holes. Whatever that feedback you get, but it gives it adequate time for patrons to come and share perspective if they have any on that policy. And then after the second reading, or after the first reading, the next meeting, then you can adopt through a second reading. So if everybody's had that opportunity to provide comment, the only way it wouldn't be immediately adopted is if the board set a timeline. On July 1st, this will be enacted. I can't think of any policies we've done that have that, but they certainly could be time-stamped, so to speak. And then any amendments you make may be proposed at any time before the adoption, or before the final adoption of the policy. You would then just go back to a second reading. So that's what I had for a policy development, board education. If there's questions, I'd be happy to answer any. And thank you to Jennifer for bringing up a good idea.
Any questions? None? Okay, moving on to old business. Any old business? Hearing none, moving into new business. We have nothing under activities, building or grounds, or curriculum. Under finance, we have the approval of the negotiated agreement with Consolidated Construction Company for construction management at risk CMAR services.
So under January 16th meeting, I provided you a memo which I've updated here for February 6th. That's the construction management at risk. As I talked about last time, the process is pretty well outlined in Century Code related to how it works to select, to that whole selection process through bidding, to RFQs, to the interview, and then to the recommendation process. It's all pretty well outlined for us. And now I've been able to update that with the information that we requested, or at least the what we requested from each firm. We requested a presentation specific to that. You can look specifically to what we asked for, that summary outline, as well as a question and answer session, in interview portion. I thought we really had three excellent firms that came and gave great presentations. Consolidated Construction, Construction Engineers, and McGuff. They all did an excellent job, and I have to give a lot of thanks to those members that came. Travis Dillman from Interstate Engineering was our engineer. Nick Sherbinski was our contractor. Chris Gibbs was the architect. I represented the school. But Cedric came and represented the school district also as a non-voting person, because the rules are pretty defined about who gets to select. And then Sally also. I thought, like I said, I think the group did a great job. I was proud of that. I thought those people that came in really asked great questions and helped us in a way that I don't know if I would have had the expertise to ask some of the questions that they asked or to have some of the feedback that they had. And I was very thankful that the process is outlined this way because I think we ended up ensuring that all the angles were covered there. So the recommendation of the selection committee was to approve consolidated, or is to recommend the approval of consolidated construction to provide construction management at risk services. And what I would ask is that you would approve that recommendation and then give me the authority to engage in negotiations with consolidated for an agreement. And you would I would bring that agreement back to you at the next meeting. He will be up on Thursday, and we're going to have some conversations about what that agreement looks like, and then we would bring it back to you. So question, Cedric, did I miss anything that you were a participant in all of those meetings?
No, I think you probably hit most of it there. I know we had discussed as a group, those of us that were on that selection committee, just the process. And as Rob had mentioned, there was 3 firms there that were probably all extremely capable of doing a very good job. We felt that with the selection we made, we chose someone that was very passionate about their job and is committed to what we're doing, committed to Jamestown. And it's something that wasn't necessarily an easy decision, but yet at the same point in time, hopefully they'll be able to deliver for us. It's something we felt positive about.
So is there a motion to approve the negotiated agreement? Motion by, you have a question, Greg, or do you want to move and then go into more discussion, or?
Well, I just thought the motion included giving you authority
Yes.
Yeah,
to negotiate.
And just for clarification too, I'm not talking about doing, it would still come back to the board. The board would still approve the final agreement, just so everybody's on
Right,
the same
yeah.
page.
so Greg, you motioned for the approval?
Steve did.
Oh, Steve did? Okay, Steve did, then seconded by Diane. And then any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to personnel, is there a motion to approve the letter of resignation from Sally Wallace as first grade teacher of Roosevelt School for Jamestown District at the conclusion of the 2016-17 school year? Motion by Greg, seconded by Jennifer. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the letter of resignation from Joan Gaylor as speech pathologist teacher at Roosevelt Elementary School for Jamestown District at the conclusion of the 2016-17 school year? Motion by Heidi. Yep, thank you for her service. Yeah, absolutely. So, motion by Heidi, seconded by Cedric. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Superintendent's evaluation, that'll be later on as far as you gave us already the dates and stuff that we have to compile that, so.
Yep.
Heidi?
So if we missed one or something along the way because we're doing the pieces, would someone let us know?
We can do the whole
Amy,
thing.
we can
at
go
the
in and
end
do the
too,
whole-
right? Yeah,
if
you
you
can do
want.
the whole thing.
So when I open it, maybe I just need to do it on a computer, because I open up my phone, I think it looks a little different,
Oh.
and so I may get repeat questions or something, and so, but if I've missed any part, if someone would
tell
let me
you.
know, that would be helpful.
Okay.
You don't have it, says? Okay, thank you. They always all blank out, is that what it is? Okay, I'll
Okay.
figure it out, thank you.
Moving into policy and procedures. You were saying, Rob, we can do all the seconds at once?
I would recommend that you do unless
someone-
anybody would like to have any of them pulled off for greater discussion. I think as a second reading with no comments, you would be very safe to do that.
So we need a motion, unless someone wants to pull out, we're going from A to O, the second readings of the amendments. Okay, Jennifer made a motion, seconded by Steve. Any discussion on those? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter P, is there a motion to rescind extracurricular activities FFE policy? Motion by Cedric, seconded by Diane. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to Q, those are all first readings. Does anybody want to?
Do all the first readings.
All the first seven, okay. Q, is there a motion for the first reading of the extracurricular participation requirements, FFE policy? Motion by Diane, seconded by Jennifer. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter R, is there a motion for the first reading of the meals for students participating in extracurricular activities, FFE-AR? Motion by Greg, seconded by Steve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter S, is there a motion for the first reading of the athletic physicals, FFE-AR2? Motion by Heidi, seconded by Diane. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have nothing under tuition. Moving to letter G, is there any items for future agenda? If there is something that comes up, let myself know or email Rob, and we'll make sure to get it on the agenda. Meetings to be scheduled, we have this next school board meeting is Monday, February 20th at 5:15 in the Thompson Room here in the middle school. We have the teachers' non-renewal and negotiation seminar on Thursday and Friday, February 9th and 10th in Bismarck. And then we also have the Citizens Advisory meeting on Thursday, February 9th at 5 p.m. in the Thompson Room here in the middle school. Anything else that we're missing? If not, going to letter I, we have the monthly superintendent's evaluation, and also right-click on our adjournment to assess the meeting. Meeting's adjourned. That speeds things up with doing all the second. That's just
If there's no comment, there's no reason to do them all again.
yeah, I agree.
But I just like that first time, and I think you technically could get by with one motion with all those.
Yeah.
but I think
Reading them,
I
then
just-
people hear what you're
well,
doing too.
It's not just people though, it's even board members, you might not think of that policy, where you might not